Hey guys, welcome back. Andrew here with Ambient Endeavors, and today I've got my Gretsch Streamliner Club one pickup jet here as we're doing kind of a part B to a demo I did of this guitar a few months back. You can check that out via the link somewhere up in the corner here. But the Cliff Notes version of this guitar is that it's a $189 Streamliner Jet. One pickup, it's a bolt-on neck, still some nice contouring on the back here, and a really smooth playable neck, along with some other what I think are great kind of aesthetic choices with the V headstock, the thumbnail inlays and such throughout. It's got one pickup, and so you're really limited and sort of simplified in that domain. I kind of threw the question out in that video whether you could live with just one pickup, and it really quickly got me wondering or maybe dreaming about what pickup I would like to swap into this guitar to kind of maximize its potential. So I had a few options I was considering, right? So the Jet comes stock with a ceramic style humbucker. It's a fairly run-of-the-mill humbucker and about what you'd expect from a guitar that's in that $200 price range. Doesn't sound bad by any means, but it just won't blow you away. And so I wanted to bring something that had more character, more articulation and nuance, and just more of a specific voice than what the stock humbucker gives. And so there's a few options, right? You've got that route and that pickup size to work with, but thankfully there's a number of builders these days that offer different types of pickups in that humbucker size enclosure. And so my mind first went to a P90 style pickup, sort of the classic Les Paul Jr. type setup and sound, where with the right P90 you can really get a nice range, maybe with your volume and tone controls, a range of cleaner sounds to those rich kind of raw overdriven sounds as well. So I considered that for a little bit, and I know there's a number of pickup makers that make the humbucker size P90 pickups. I also thought of finding the best PAF style humbucker and dropping that in, because the longer I've played and the more PAF style pickups I've experienced, a good version of that pickup can be really versatile and can work really well across clean and dirtier tones. So that was something I considered as well. If you've caught any of the recent Gretsch videos on the channel here, or if you've engaged with me down in the comments of Gretsch related videos, you probably know that I'm just a huge fan of Filtertron style pickups. And I really think that that's at the core of the Gretsch sound. When I think about Gretsch, I think about Filtertrons and the textures and the chimey top end sparkle that those pickups have, the unique kind of voicing in the mids and the low mids, just the unique character of that pickup. And so I couldn't put that out of my mind, and I ultimately went with a Filtertron style pickup in this Jet to really try and recreate the Gretsch sound and the Gretsch vibe in this Streamliner Jet here. But before we move on, I'd love to hear your choice. If you had to pick one pickup to swap into this guitar, would it be the Filtertron to kind of recreate that Gretsch sound more authentically, or would you be looking in a different direction for a different style of pickup? Drop your comment below, and I'd love to engage with you down there and hear what you think. So my friends at Lollar were kind enough to send over this Lollartron in a really beautiful, lightly aged nickel covering. It's a pickup that I've had in different guitars throughout the years. I've had a set of them in my 72 Deluxe Telecaster. And while Lollar is sponsoring this video, there's really no strings attached. And if you kind of check my history here on the channel and on Instagram, you'll see that I've played Lollars for years and years and years. I've paid for a number of Lollar pickups, and they've also been kind enough to send me some for content like this. And so I have no problems recommending a lot of what Lollar has put out there, and I'm really excited to have this in this guitar. As you'll kind of hear in the sound samples, it's really brought it to life in a fun way, and these Lollartrons just do a great job of recreating the Filtertron style sound in a really clear, articulate, and rich way. So I generally don't do a ton of work on my own guitars. Admittedly, I often bring them over to my friends at Overman Guitars in St. Paul here, and they do excellent work and get stuff back to me just playing even better than it was before. But I wanted to tackle this project here in the studio to just kind of give you some insight and show and tell into how the process goes. First off, if you're new to this whole world of soldering, I would highly recommend a little bit of practice at least, or maybe having someone walk you through the ins and outs of soldering first. Definitely do it at your own own risk. I'm not taking any responsibility for anything that happens on your side of the bench, but there's definitely inherent risk when you've got a really hot soldering iron and are kind of moving it around. So know that. The other thing I'd recommend is to give yourself a little bit more breathing room than I did in the video here. I wanted to have everything in this room to showcase it sort of with the best visuals and lighting and things like that, but throughout the process I kind of realized that I was limiting my surface space a little bit too much, and it worked out, but I would highly recommend doing this on sort of a bigger table or a workbench or something that gives you a little more breathing room and stuff like that. Lastly, as you'll see, I left the strings on this guitar while doing this project. I had just gotten the guitar set up and didn't really want to burn through a set of perfectly good strings here, so I kind of finagled my way around these loosened strings, but I'd recommend just taking the strings off of your guitar to make it a lot easier throughout the process here. So for those that are interested, I'll just kind of talk through the process. On this guitar, it's a relatively simple modification because there's such few components. You've just got the pickup here, you've got the two knobs. So I started by taking the backplate off to just kind of see what I was working with here. You've got that volume pot and the tone pot. There's just two wires coming from the stock humbucker, and you'll notice those wires coming in from the body of the guitar here into this back cavity. You simply unsolder those two wires. One of them is attached to the potentiometer case. The other is attached to the wiper of the pot, the middle lug of the pot there. And then from there, I just flip the guitar back over and start to unscrew the 4 perimeter screws on the pickup mounting rings. Once you get those unscrewed, you can take the whole pickup off of the guitar and feed that wire out of the guitar, and it's fully removed from your guitar at that point. You'll want to reuse that mounting ring because often pickups don't come with that. And this Lollartron will fit right into a humbucker sized mounting ring. So you unscrew the middle screws that loosen the pickup and allow that to come free from the mounting ring. And then you'll simply reverse the process. You'll screw the new pickup into the black mounting ring, feed the wire through the body that goes into that back control cavity, and then I decided to screw those 4 screws back in to secure the mounting ring on the front of the guitar again before flipping it over and doing the final wiring. From there, you simply solder the ground braid to the casing again and solder that signal lead to the wiper of the pot, the middle lug of that potentiometer, and then you can put the black control plate back on and make sure everything works. Luckily, everything worked first try for me, and I think the height of the pickup was to my taste. That's one thing you can adjust after it's installed by either screwing or unscrewing these 2 screws here that adjust the height of the pickup there, so you can get it to your taste, whether you want it closer or a little bit further away for a little bit lower output, kind of quieter response. There's also information on Lollar's website that kind of helps guide you through this process, and will also address some of those technical specs around some of the spacing and height and that sort of thing if you want to be really precise about it. All in all, the process took about 30 minutes in the studio here, so it's really a relatively painless process and a really simple modification in terms of the wiring. I will note one thing as I'm thinking about it here, and I'll cut to some close-ups, but it's important to remember the orientation of that black pickup ring. I actually installed the pickup the first time in the wrong orientation because it's slightly slanted in one direction, and so I had to unscrew and rescrew that pickup in there, but make sure that it's in the right orientation so that the slant is kind of pointing towards the neck of the guitar, and you'll be in good shape. Okay, so we've talked about the choices, the decision I made to put the Lollartron in there, and we went through the process. Now let's hear the sounds. say I'm really excited with the way that this guitar sounds after throwing the Lollartron in there. You know, we're putting a $200 pickup into a $189 guitar, which may garner some opinions or responses, but I really feel like the bones of this guitar, these Streamliner Club 1 Jets, are really solid. And I've had this sort of corroborated with other folks that have interacted with them or bought them. They just kind of nailed the feel, the vibe, and the presentation here of these guitars. And so it just is a fun platform to infuse your own preference or your own voice into the mix and still come out, you know, at a pretty reasonable price point here. So it may seem like a silly thing to put that expensive of a pickup into this guitar, but I am loving the way the Filtertron sounds here, and I think that it quickly elevates this guitar into one that I'm going to really want to pick up and play in certain contexts and cases. It already plays and feels really great, and so now it sounds the way I want it to sound with a voice and a character of its own. So I'm pretty psyched about how it sounds, and it really makes me excited to grab this guitar for a future project. Thanks again to Lollar for sending over the Lollartron pickup here to support the video. If you've got questions or are curious about Lollar and their offerings, hit the link below and peruse their website. They've got a bunch of great options for pickups. And I'd love to hear your opinions or your thoughts, your questions on this topic, whether you'd put as expensive of a pickup into this kind of guitar, or whether you've got some questions about this pickup or this guitar. Drop them below in the comments and we can chat there. Thanks for watching.